Welcome to the Outlander Unhinged podcast, where we talk deep dives, wild theories, and the heart of Outlander. I'm Doreen.
I'm Liz.
And I'm Jenny.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome back to the Outlander Unhinged episode 16.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
We are so happy to be through the holiday season and back to recording. Although Katie is sitting out for today's episode and we will miss her. We love you, Katie.
Love you.
We have an exciting episode prepared that we are so excited to discuss. So, Jenny, do you want to introduce today's topic?
Today's topic is the Outlander Novellas and why you should read them.
So anyone who's been following along with us for any amount of time knows that we are big fans of the novellas. My personal opinion, I don't know if you guys agree, is that even if you're just a show watcher and don't necessarily want to read the big books, The Commitment, you should still try the novellas. There's just so much magic, so many side quests, and those stories, in my opinion, just give you such a different outlook on Outlander as a whole. So today we're going to be focusing on 3 novellas: Exile, A Leaf on the Winds of All Hallows, and The Space Between. So Jenny, since you forced us all to read Exile for some reason, why don't you introduce the story and tell us what stood out for you?
I know Doreen hates this book, like with a passion.
I really do.
But it really is a great book. It looks like this, so it really does look quite different from the other novellas. When she wrote this, Diana, it was, I guess it hit a trend at some point, and it's kind of like a comic book for adults.
It's a graphic novel.
Graphic novel, yeah. So when I think graphic novel, I think like smut. I don't know. That's why I keep saying it's more like a whatever.
It just means animated. Like, it's not an accurate depiction in the artwork.
Now, if you were on a live with Liz and I, this little picture right here is what got me banned for 8 minutes. So I have to say, that's a really good depiction. It almost could be Sam.
Bad Jenny.
So the story takes place from Jamie's point of view.
The picture is so terrible. Sorry.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it starts from Jamie's point of view before he meets Claire. It's just when he's coming back to Scotland from France. And it fills in the blanks of what is happening prior to Claire's arrival. We meet a couple of interesting characters along the way, one of which is named Kenneth. And that's a really interesting part of the story for me. So let me start off from the beginning. So it starts off with Murtaugh waiting on the shore for Jamie to come home. And Murtaugh sees seals, black seals, in the water. And he has a conversation with Brian, who is Jamie's father. So that does lead us into the whole storyline of Brian being a Selkie. And from there, Jamie comes home. They meet up with Dougal. While this is all happening, back in the future, Galis is getting prepared to travel along with a friend of hers named Kenneth. And the interesting thing is, Galis travels the night that we see Claire at the Stones and she sees her go through. She goes from 1968 to 1732 or 1734, somewhere within there. Now, Kenneth, who goes in, I think it's 2 hours later, he arrives almost 10 years later from her. You would think he would arrive 2 hours later because we do know that time moves at the same pace. So 1 year is 1 year. So why did he end up 10 years down the road? So when he arrives, it's actually right after Claire, and Murtaugh witnesses both of them coming through the Stones. So it's interesting that Murtaugh sees all of this and just never says a word, at least in the books. So from there, you have Kenneth headed over to the gathering. He makes an oath to Colum and the clan, and his job is actually to kill Jamie. They saw him as a threat. Am I getting this all right, Doreen? Okay, I'm so bad with remembering stuff.
Doing amazing.
Okay. So they're really trying to get him out of power so Dougal can actually take over. Obviously, it doesn't happen. Down the road, Kenneth meets up with Murtaugh, and it's kind of left a little vague to me. You don't know for sure that Kenneth dies, but there is a big fight. Kenneth is stabbed, and it's just kind of left at that. So I don't think there's going to be any more to that part of the story, but it would be interesting if she did go on with that. So the rest of it is like when Claire is drunk prior to marrying Jamie, Kenneth actually slips into her room and she's asleep, she's drunk, and he whispers into her ear, "Do you know who the president of the United States is?" Knowing that if she was a time traveler, that she'd be able to answer that. But she was drunk, so she answered Jesus Roosevelt Christ. So he knew immediately that she was from the future. So Galus all along did know that Claire was a traveler because Kenneth had obviously met up with Galus. But what I want to know is where were those 10 years that it took him to get back? That's kind
Space
of the
between.
gist of it. It follows the story straight through until Claire and Galus are held at the witch trial. And there was supposed to be a part two of it, but it really didn't take off the book just the way it was written. It was really out of her style for the people that were reading it. So she stepped away from it. But I think that's kind of the gist of it. So I really enjoyed it. The pictures, I'm going to be honest with you, they're weird. As the story goes along, Claire's boobs get bigger. It's just the weirdest thing. I guess it would be what you would consider like early anime. That's the only way I can kind of describe it. But it's very hard to tell the male characters apart. They start to look like one person. Murtaugh looks exactly like Dougal. Dougal looks exactly like Jamie. So you really have to pay attention to reading this. But it does give some great information in between. So that's my little summary. Probably not the best, but that's what I got out of it.
Okay, so can I go for next real quick?
Yes.
Two things. We actually know how Kenneth dies, and it has to do with prophecy, and we learn it later. But
I don't think.
the second thing is that I've always found very, very interesting, and we did an entire episode on the Fraser prophecy, but learning about Kenneth, who is the originator of the Fraser prophecy. He's also known as the
Mm-hmm.
Brand Seer. So I've always wondered, this was when I started thinking about the time born artifacts of Outlander.
Okay.
And for those of you who didn't hear the episode or don't know what I'm referring to, it's basically, you remember in Back to the Future when Marty McFly goes back in the past and he sings that song, but it's a Marvin, I can't even think of the
Chuck
guy's
Berry.
name right now. Chuck
Chuck
Berry
Berry.
song. And in the show, he holds up the phone and Chuck Berry's nephew is playing him the song, or his brother, and then he hears the song and then he goes on to write it. And you start to ask yourself, well, who is the original writer of that song? And that's a time born artifact. And that's how I think about this. The only thing I enjoyed about this dumbass graphic novel was that it made me realize there's really no original source for the Fraser prophecy, because Kenneth reads it in the future in the 60s along with other characters and Galus. And we know Galus knew Claire was a time traveler also because of her notebook, which, Liz, you already
Mm-hmm.
read that as well, so that's not a spoiler. But it's interesting to me why Diana felt the need to write this graphic novel, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because it kind of makes you wonder, is the Fraser prophecy even real? Because who originally wrote it? If he travels back, he starts telling the prophecy, but then he learns about it in the 60s, but he was the one who created it in history. So who's the original author? That's the only thing I liked about Exile, and then trying to figure out where Kenneth goes. And that's kind of where the space between is a purgatory of sorts kind of came to fruition. So what do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Liz.
Okay, well, so can I start with the things that stuck out to me
Heck yeah.
first, and then okay. So I feel like there are two things in particular that really stood out to me. The first was definitely Myrta and Brian in the beginning, and having the understanding that Myrta was always somewhere in the background. Even
Yes.
if we didn't see him, even if he wasn't being talked about, he was always shifted just slightly off center. He was always there, and he was always watching everything unfold. So I think it's pretty clear for me and evident to say Myrta actually knew a lot more about Claire, Galis, whoever you want to say, than he might have let on that he did. And that makes his character incredibly interesting when you start to think about some of the things he says, the actions he took, how he was always by Jamie's side, and once Claire came into the picture, always by Claire's side. I love Myrta so much, and I love that we got this moment of privacy with himself and Brian, especially because we're getting a little bit more of the story of the love triangle that was happening between Brian, Ellen, and Myrta. The second thing really is we gain a much better understanding of Galis and what time she actually went to. Because the first time we see her in the past is when Claire went through in 1743. But we knew that she had to go earlier because by the time we met her, she already had a husband. She already had a profitable business. She already had a reputation. So it became a matter of, okay, but when did she originally arrive? And Jenny, as you said, it was somewhere around 1732, 1734. But then we see her again in 1739.
Right.
So girl has been hanging out in the past for quite some time. She's been just chilling, taking her sweet time to get the motor running and push that boulder down a hill. So those were really the two things that stood out to me in particular.
Can I ask you something? Because maybe you guys can refresh my memory, because actually I'm not clear on this. I know that at some point we learn what Galis was doing and how she was living in that little hovel and she burnt her down with the guy inside. Do we learn about that in Exile?
No.
Or is that in the main books?
Why do I think it was in? It has to be in the main
Voyager?
books. I don't think it's in past prologue. We get a
I
little
don't remember
glimpse.
it being in past prologue.
I think it's in Voyager when she's telling the story of when she first traveled and how she had to establish herself and she found that man and she was living on his
Yes.
farm and then she burnt that place down and that guy as well. So you learn,
Yes.
okay, so she's just not killing one husband, she's killing everybody she comes in contact with.
Everybody.
She has a tendency of barbecuing her husband.
Well,
What did I call her the other day? The pitmaster of Craig Nadoon. That's what I called her.
I mean,
Liz is going to make that into a sticker, guys.
Yes.
She kills her husband in the future to get back to the past. She kills that first husband. She kills the husband that we see her with. I can't remember his name at the moment. And more than likely, probably poisoned the other gentleman who we find walking along the moor. That's my opinion on that.
Duncan Kerr.
Kerr, yeah. So,
Oh, yeah.
she probably did something to him, So,
Yeah.
I would not take a drink from her at all.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Liz. I'm sorry. I just couldn't remember if that took place in Exile because sometimes it just all kind of blurs together.
Lars,
Yeah.
yes, agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Okay, so Doreen, remind us of your question related to Kenneth, because I know where we're kind of taking a back route to get to that. You were asking about Kenneth and the Fraser prophecy.
I was just wondering if you guys viewed it as a time-born artifact as well, similar to the Boogie Woogie Bugle song that Myrta and Claire do, because if someone hears that, who's the original author of it? And things that get brought back all throughout the books, you have to wonder, even penicillin.
All right, so I have an interesting thought on that too. If we think about Claire back on the ridge, she's done her darndest to make penicillin. I am of the belief, like outside of Outlander, that things like that, specifically penicillin, I do think that someone's Meemaw back in the 1600s probably figured that out and was treating. That's how we have all of these herbal remedies. the difference is by the time it gets to the 1900s or whenever it was, late 1800s, that penicillin was recognized. That person only got the credit because we had newspapers, towns were bigger, word of mouth was bigger, and it was, maybe just a better publicist, So
Yeah.
it really is
Better
interesting to me
PR.
that
Yeah.
we don't really know who the originators. Now, I'm not trying to be, tinfoil hat here, but these herbal remedies are things that absolutely exist and absolutely do work, although I am a big believer in doctors and medicine. But I think
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
kind of like a time born artifact as well, that there probably was somebody messing with bread and putting it on somebody's leg, and it probably
Mm-hmm.
healed with it. So,
So I guess that's what I'm asking you guys is if you think the Fraser prophecy, because that was the first time I really started thinking about how many things this could
mhm.
apply to in the story, and if you guys view
Mm-hmm.
it that way and think that maybe that's possible and the Fraser prophecy is just a time-born artifact and not something that literally has to be fulfilled.
I think it could be. I absolutely think that it could be. And I think that when we think about time in Outlander, or the Mobius as we like to talk about it, there are so many different events that happen where people are hopping on and off and they're interacting with time, they're interacting with space, they're interacting with momentum, and then they're gone or they show up in another place later. There's a lot of
Switching
wibbly
between
wobbly
parallel
woo that
timelines.
happens. Exactly. There's a lot that happens, and I don't necessarily think the Fraser prophecy is something that has to be fulfilled in a literal sense, that
Mm-hmm.
maybe it could be more of a metaphor.
Mhm.
We've talked about that
Yep.
privately, that it isn't necessarily something that we're going to see come to fruition in the way it is described. It might just be a metaphor or a symbol for something else, but ultimately there could be some truth to it and it could be time born. Absolutely.
Or it
Yeah, I
could
would
be
agree with
there
that.
specifically existing to keep the timeline in place,
Correct.
feeding into the predestination of everything. Like it's a plot device.
Right.
It could have been like a Master Raymond thing, just implanted in
That's
there.
what I'm saying. Yeah, it's
Oh, no,
something
I didn't
that's
realize you were talking.
used.
Okay, so yeah, like that would be him,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, we're going to put this here, and this keeps you all on the edge
Exactly.
of your seat.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I
So I kind of
agree.
think that was the point
Absolutely.
of Exile, was to give us a little bit more of a backstory about how the prophecy originated, to show us that when you go through the stones, there's no guarantee you can get lost for a long time. And I think it
For
was just
10
Yeah.
the
years.
point, like any of the novellas, is to show you more about the magic system that doesn't necessarily get revealed. So, and I
Yeah.
think one of
Let me
the
just
novellas that, oh, go ahead.
go
Yeah.
ahead. No, 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 go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, go ahead. Please. I want to hear what you had to say.
Um, I wanted to add on what Liz said, that Murtaugh always seems to be just on the edge of what's happening. Interesting part of
Mm-hmm.
this story is that the scene where, and we see it in the show too, they have just escaped the witch trial. They're Claire and Jamie are by themselves. What we don't know is Kenneth is right in the background there, and he is going to attempt to
Mm-hmm.
kill Jamie. And lo and behold, out of the woods comes Murtaugh, and that's where that fight takes place. I'm not really good at like heating stories here, but the things that I can remember, I'll
You
pop
did
in.
really
But yeah, so
well.
once again, it does show that Murtaugh, when he said he would take care of Jamie, he meant that he was always going to be just to the 10 paces behind, never interfere, but truly take care of him. So yeah, one of my favorite characters, Murtaugh. But that was that.
Yeah,
That was a
I
great
mean,
job. That was awesome.
I think you do great. Give yourself some grace, Jenny. But
Yeah.
one of the novellas that I think also gives us the biggest insight into some magical elements are the next two that we're going to talk about. I'm going to let Liz introduce The Love of Her Life's book next, because if I introduced this one, we probably would have big problems. She's, for those of you who don't have a camera,
I
she's
must
gently massaging the book.
I am.
I must
Into
have
my
told
heart, into
Liz,
my body.
I'm like, if you don't read this book, we're not friends. Like, I am not kidding. You have to get on this. And she did.
I received enough threats from Jenny that I decided
It's
you
time.
better just read the book, because it's very clear that unkind things are going to be said to you if you
That's
don't read the
right.
book. So just read the book. Just read the
I'm going to
book.
be like Murtaugh. I'm going to
So
be outside your house like, bitch, did you read this book yet?
that's, it's true. So if you don't want Jenny coming after you, read Leaf. Just read Leaf. So I am absolutely thrilled and honored to introduce to you A Leaf on the Wind of All Hallows, which I want to say, out of all of the novellas that I have read thus far, there are two that have been completely life-changing for me. One will be discussed later, and Leaf is the other one. And I still to this day think about Leaf at least once a day. It was that moving of a story for me,
Yeah.
and that intense of a story, that it actually changed the way I think about Outlander, but also the way I think about reading, because this novella took me for a ride that I have never been on before in my life. So, A Leaf on the Wind of All Hallows is essentially the backstory of Roger McDaddy Woo's parents, Jerry and Dolly. And Jerry is an RAF pilot, and he is working in the British military during World War II time. And we get a lot of information about Roger's mom and dad, their relationship, what Jerry does for work, and a secret mission that he is asked to complete by a Captain Randall. And because this is a novella that is doing major deep dives into backstories, we are also getting information about Frank the Tank Randall very early on in his marriage to Claire, because we have to remember that when Frank and Claire got married, it was shortly before wartime, and they did not have a lot of time to necessarily spend together before they were separated in the war. And Frank is one of the characters that I really do believe later on in Outlander will have redemption and will be able to answer a lot of the questions that we have, because we get a lot of his backstory. And I think it is incredible to have read this novel and have the understanding that Roger has been in the Outlander universe from the very beginning. He has been present in this story from the very beginning with Frank. So when we meet Frank and Roger in the Outlander Big Books, Frank already knows who Roger is, because Frank had a lot of dealings with Roger's family. And that is so incredibly wild to me. This is a very special story. It is a moving story. It is a devastating story. It is an incredibly heartfelt story. This gave me such a level of background knowledge for Roger that although I love him beyond words, I have even more of an appreciation for him because I have an understanding of his family and what his parents had gone through. And Jerry's journey throughout this entire novella is gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
Once you start reading, you will not be able to stop. And one of the things that has stood out to me, there's obviously a couple. One is how involved Frank has been in Roger's family from the get-go. But the other is the fact that now that we know what we know, Roger, I think, is one of the only time travelers in Outlander who traveled to secure his own timeline. And I know it's really hard to wrap your head around that, but once you get a little bit farther in the story or in the show, you will come to understand what I mean.
Why
The
don't you tell
ending of
everyone how we
Leaf.
know and how we learn it in this novella? Because I think that's what
Should I? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So essentially, in season 7, part 2, and I don't know what book it's in. Is it in Moby when that happens?
It's an
Where
Echo
does
and
that happen
Moby.
in the big books? It's in
Yeah,
Echo and Moby. Okay.
yeah,
Yes. Okay. So for those of you who are book readers and show watchers, we know that Frying Pan Rob Cameron kidnaps Jem and essentially creates a farce of making Brianna and Roger believe that he has gone through the stones with Jem. And Roger, at that time, with his 6 times great grandfather, Buck Mackenzie, Big Daddy Buck, they decide to travel through the stones to the past, searching for Jem because they believe Frying Pan Rob Cameron is after the lost Jacobite gold. Roger and Buck end up in 1739. They are unsure of where Jem is, but they are given clues about a person who didn't really seem like he fit in during the time. His clothes were different, he spoke differently, and Roger and Buck go on this mad dash manhunt to try to find Jem, and they end up finding Roger's father, Jerry Mackenzie. And Roger, upon conversation, realizes that his father did not pass in the war. His father disappeared during the war. And there's an incredibly beautiful emotional moment that Roger has with his dad. You can see how badly he wants to tell Jerry, I'm your son, the one you want to get back to. It's me. It's me. But they part at the stones, and Roger is responsible for getting Jerry back to his own time. He tells Jerry, think of your wife. Think of your wife, only your wife. And Jerry actually does make it back, but he makes it back a little later. It's been, I believe, about a year since he has time traveled, and life has moved on. The world has continued to turn, and the ending of Leaf, I think, is the part of the story that I cannot stop thinking about, because it solidifies for me not only how important Roger's character is, but the fact that there are other people at play. And I was devastated when I read the end of Leaf. I think I called Jenny screaming and crying on the phone. I think I could not compose myself for quite some time. It was an
amazing
incredible ending. It is. It is. And I still have a lot of questions about the people who were there. I still have a lot of questions about what exactly happened and how Roger was able to get transferred to Reverend Wakefield. It was really incredible.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on the phone when you read this, and I can remember just how you told me to read this book. This is ripping my heart out, but this is amazing. But this is where we started to wonder, how much people knew. And the fact that Frank, when he arrives with Claire at the Reverend's house, he already knew Roger. That was a moment where your head split open. And same for me.
Here's the thing that
Absolutely.
got to me is that in the show, they gave us, after we see Roger send his dad back, they gave us this flash of a young Roger sitting in the bus station or the train station underground with his dad, and everything exploding around them. And I got bombarded with comments of people asking me, was Roger having a vision or was he having a memory? And I just
Yes.
remember in that moment telling everyone, just read A Leaf in the Winds of All Hallows, because that's when you realize it's a memory, and that he went back only to save Roger's life. And it's just so heartbreaking that realization. And I think even
Mm-hmm.
when Katie finished reading it, she sent us a picture of her tissues. They were stacked high on
Yeah.
her table.
Devastated.
And I think it's because in that moment, that's when we all realized that every story, and at least for me, I don't want to speak for you guys, but every character's story is kind of tragic. And it gave me a
Yes.
different understanding of how all of the character stories are going to end.
I agree.
Yeah.
So,
Do you remember what I said to you after I watched that episode and Roger closed his eyes and
Mm-hmm.
we got that image of him and Jerry, in the train station? Do you remember what I said to you? I
No.
I
said to
don't.
you, I said to you, is that a metaphor for Roger's life falling apart in order to be put back together
Oh.
again? I
It,
remember
Mm,
vividly
yeah.
saying that
We
to
probably have it
both
in
of
text
you,
messages.
and you both
probably.
were like, well, I think we were, yeah, I think we were texting, and I think both of you said, you just have to read the big books to figure it out. You just have to read it.
Yeah,
But
because anything after
but
that.
right, because at that point I had not read Leaf.
Right.
And once I did read Leaf, and
Mm-hmm.
you get the ending of Leaf is so action packed. It moves
Yeah.
so quickly. There's a moment where Jerry and Dolly see each other. There's this moment of acknowledgement. Roger is being passed to Jerry because the ceiling is about to cave in. It's insane. It really is
Mm-hmm.
insane. And we get a little bit of Jerry's consciousness at the end. He's there. His consciousness is there. He's there with Dolly, and he sees Roger being taken. He hears Roger being taken by two men who seem to, I almost feel like they seem to know him. Jenny and I have had a conversation before where we've both said, do you think Frank possibly had a hand in sending those men to get Roger, because Frank has been keeping an eye on Jerry's family the entire time? And I think, yes, I do.
So my thoughts have changed, and I know Doreen and I have talked about this. One person's name in there is Rafe. We think
Mm-hmm.
that he's a time traveler. So I know you've read Liz. Which book is it with Minnie? Fugitive Green?
Yes,
Have you read A Fugitive Green?
I have. I have.
Okay. So in
So
that,
you met
Minnie,
Rafe.
That was the same Rafe?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Like, what would the odds of that name be?
B.
So that right there, and to be
Oh,
in that
yeah.
exact.
Two different time periods, right.
And because the funny thing is,
Yeah.
I think it's in A Fugitive Green, Rafe is missing fingers. And when he and Minnie
Right.
talk, every time something comes up, whether he talks about his hand, he never gives her the same story twice. You know, one day it got cut off by a
Mm-hmm.
pirate, or one day it got caught in a I'm making these up, a brick landed on it. But to me, that gives the idea of, I can't remember what I've told everybody over the course of my
Mm-hmm.
traveling. And she just kind of keeps a mental note of it. So I just think that the repetition of names to me is always what sticks out. So I do think,
Yeah.
like you, that he could be a time traveler. Because if I'm not mistaken, it
So
doesn't Dolly literally chuck him over the steps, and Jerry catches him, and then everything crashes behind, and then they show up magically. Look at this little guy. Let's pull him out of his father's hands, and magically he's off
Mm-hmm.
to
and
safety.
deliver him to
So,
his uncle.
um,
Yeah.
yep,
Yes. Yes.
yep. So, and look, I don't necessarily. I'm not disagreeing that Frank has something to do with getting Roger to Reverend. You and I talked about that a lot, Liz. There had to
Mm-hmm.
be some intervention because,
Yes.
yeah, he had already
It
been.
was too
Frank had already met
coincidental
him.
that they showed up there. Right. It was too coincidental at that time that they just showed up there
Yep.
and knew seemingly exactly what to say.
And let me just quickly say this. I think the show didn't do a great job. Roger is much younger in that scene. They made him look about 5 or 6 years old in that scene. He's
Yeah.
not. I'm not
Yes.
going to say he's an infant, but he might only be 3 years old. So they made
He's like
him
a
look,
toddler.
He's
Yeah.
yeah,
two.
and they made him look, okay, there you go. So they make him look like he's like 5, 6, 7 years old sitting there, and that's not what it was. So, wasn't
Yeah.
happy with that change. Um, what
Yeah.
else you got?
So, did anyone, do you want to bring something else up, Liz, before I talk about anything from this novella?
No, go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
The biggest things that I loved about this novella, of course, are all the things that you just talked about. But I am obsessed with the fact that both of the people that were flying these missions, that Frank was putting on these missions, are
Oh,
time travelers. And
Mm-hmm.
that one of them is the Comte Saint Germain's father, and one of them is Roger's father. And
mm-hmm.
I also, I don't, and this is what I was trying to talk about before we started recording because I didn't want to give you a spoiler, is I don't think at this point in the story that Frank knew about time travel. I think MI6 did, and I think that they were
Agreed.
conducting experiments. And I believe that once Claire went back, Frank started digging very deep. He found out
Mm-hmm.
about time travel, MI6 involvement in it, and events that take place in the later books confirm that he knew what MI6 was doing. And that's why I've always said I don't think Frank's death was an accident, that they took him out because he knew too much. And I think that the biggest
Wow.
thing that stood out to me
Mm-hmm.
in Leaf was that both of these pilots were time travelers. And what are
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
the odds? And it's Jenny that said they had cameras, and she did wonder if when the film was developed, Frank kind of looked at it and said, they just disappeared. Where did they
What
go?
the
But
hell?
we don't know
Yes.
Right.
where Paul went. We only know where
Right.
Jerry went. So for all we
I'm
know, Paul went
convinced.
somewhere and then gave birth to the comp,
Mm-hmm.
which,
Hmm.
then involves the whole Amelie and that whole line. So I don't know.
Let me
That's
ask
my
you a
favorite
question,
part.
Doreen. What makes you think? I'm just curious. What makes you think it's the comp's father and
Yeah.
not the comp? Because it's
Oh,
the
That's
because
same
always my
Diana
name.
question.
confirmed it.
It's
Yep.
the
So
same name.
Oh, she did.
so in The Space Between, which is the novella that we're going to be talking about next, the
Mm-hmm.
Comte Saint
Dun, dun,
Germain
dun.
is going by the name Paul Rakowski, which is the same name of the pilot.
Yes.
So Diana was doing a panel interview back in 2013, and someone asked her, is this the comp? And she said, no, but it's his direct ancestor. And they said, well, how many generations? And she said, just one. And so
Oh,
when you start,
wow.
and if you
Okay.
start looking through history, the real figure
Mm-hmm.
of the Comte Saint Germain,
Mm-hmm.
his father's name is Paul Rakowski. And she has said she based
Yes, I
him
knew that.
on the real historical figure.
Mm-hmm.
The
So, I mean, to me, that's kind of, but
confirmation.
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I have to
Wow.
preface this by saying this is my opinion because people think I'm wildly out of touch when I say that Master Raymond is who was guiding the Montauk Five because there's two 4 feet tall, white haired shamans that know how to shapeshift. I don't know.
You and your
People can be
misinformation.
quiet.
Uh,
Yeah, how
People
oh
don't
dare
know
my
what they're
you?
lord.
talking about. The people who say that are the people who do not know how to Outlander correctly. And that's all I will
Mm-hmm.
say.
So I think one of the things that Liz had said that really stood out to me when she was talking about Leaf when she first read it, which I had realized, but I never put much value in it until she framed it the way she did, was that Roger ensures his own timeline in this novella. And I have tried with all my might because I cannot stand, I will admit it, I'm not humble. I can't stand when I can't prove something about a character I don't particularly like. And I was on a mission to figure out what other character has ensured their own timeline. And on some level, all of them have in some ways, but not in the way that Roger has.
Mm-hmm.
And I have always said that I think his ultimate role is to be the one who, at the end, shepherds everyone into the space between.
Mm.
And I think this is you kind of gave me that extra evidence of that when you pointed this out to me in the novella. So
When you think about it, and it means so much coming from you, because I know that you put a lot of thought into these books and this story. And it means a lot when you say, like, I've tried to debunk it and I can't debunk it. And it means so much, because if we think about it, realistically speaking, based on the story, Roger travels to the wrong time in 1739 because he needs to send his father back so that his father could save him in the future.
mm-hmm.
And that's the whole insanity of Roger's story, and also what makes his story so incredibly heartbreaking, that he has to lose both of his parents in order to survive and continue his story and
Mm-hmm.
make his way onto Jamie and Claire's timeline. And it really is so incredibly wild to think
Did
about.
we not spend an entire day on the phone doing this?
We did.
You and I, like, we
did.
had names written down. When I was moving, I'm not kidding. I just kept texting her. I'm like, I found another like tiny little note written somewhere, like all over the house. And yeah,
because we started playing. We started playing 6 Degrees of Claire and Jamie, and we started to talk about all of the people who we meet along the way and what they have to do with Jamie and Claire, but also what they have to do with other characters in the story. And we started making all of these crazy connections, and we didn't uncover anything that we didn't necessarily already know,
Mm-hmm.
but we were able to gain a better understanding of how, like, the web in the Outlander universe works when you start to think about how people are connected and what they have done, and how maybe people are linked together forever at that point.
Yeah.
It was really incredible to
Yeah, it
think
was
Something
good.
something that I don't know that we've ever talked about, but that I think about quite a bit is both of Roger's time travel, both the first time that he went through and when he went through to look for Jemmy, the consequences that he received were because he was thinking about his father. So the first time he tried to go through, he was pushed out of the stones and almost burnt alive because he was thinking about his father, and he was trying to go to a time in which he existed already. Right. Roger already existed and was alive. The second time, I mean, then he goes to Bree because he thinks about Bree. But then the second time that he goes to travel to try and think about Jem, he goes to a place that ensures that he lives his own timeline, thinking about his father. So you have to wonder, what is the significance of when Roger is being drawn to the stones, he's thinking about his father, and how significant that is to the story.
Yes.
So, I don't know.
Beautifully
It's a great novella. So if you have not read it, even us telling you the storyline, it is still worth you reading it. And yeah,
I don't even feel like we've even scratched the surface.
Agreed.
We've just been talking about really just the plot lines, some of the plot lines in the story. We're just, this conversation is just surface level compared to the information that's actually
it's a good one. It's really good. All right, Doreen, I think you're up.
I don't know if I should read what I wrote or just wing it. What do we vote?
I have faith in you either way.
Yeah, I have faith in you either way.
I'm going to try to wing it because my thing is really long. But okay, I'm introducing The Space Between, which is my favorite novella. And mostly because I think this is where a lot of the magic and the time traveling lore kind of stems into the series. So this takes place in 1778 Paris, about 30 years after the time that Jamie and Claire were in Paris. We, from the jump, learn that the Comte Saint Germain has survived and that he's a time traveler and that he is actively looking for Master Raymond to help him understand time travel and to travel to the future. We see that he's experimenting with rats, and I know we're going to talk about that because Jenny has a lot of thoughts about the rats. And that he is visiting a brothel where he is trying to impregnate a woman who has the blue light aura. And to that point, we learn that that the Comte has the ability to see the auras of other characters. We find out that he had been spending the last 30 years time traveling through various time periods and that he was canoodling with a woman named Melisandre, aka Galus, who taught him all about time travel, about the Standing Stones, and who he also impregnated. Captain Ezekiel Richardson. So we don't know that. That's just a theory. It's not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler.
This is one of our
my
big
theory.
theories. Yep.
It's just
wow.
It's all the right timeline.
Okay.
Yes, it's
Okay.
just a theory. I just blew Liz's mind. She thought I gave her a spoiler.
so.
Now she's trying to process.
I didn't. It was like just a moment of shock. Okay, keep going. Keep going.
The book also follows Jenny and Ian's, their second son, Michael. I think it's their second son, right?
Hold on.
It's their second son. Jamie
I
is
think it is.
first.
Second, yes. I have
Yep,
a list
okay.
here.
And he is escorting Jamie's stepdaughter, Marcelly's sister, Joni, to the convent because she is trying to escape these voices in her head that are giving her prophetic visions. So, of note, the Comte is still super angry with Claire and he mistakes Joni for Claire's child and he kidnaps her. And chaos ensues and Michael ends up saving her. Now, there's a couple times that Comte is looking for Master Raymond. When he arrives at his house, there's a cat that is watching him. That's important. He goes to the brothel and there is this snake. And this snake is said to be almost human-like and communicates with the brothel owner, which I always think that Master Raymond is a shapeshifter and that he's also using animals as familiars. So later, after he's asking, I'm looking for Maitre Raymond, I'm looking for, and asking the lady, Raymond finally comes to him in a cave and they're having a conversation. And he asks the Comte, he's asking him about time travel, just all of these things. And he notices that Master Raymond is significantly younger than when he had met him in Paris. So Master Raymond asks the Comte in that moment, what is the ultimate goal of the alchemist? To which the Comte replies, to transform matter. And then poof, Master Raymond disappears and a gray cat appears. And again, later in the novella, the Comte is taking Joni down to this cave where he is time traveling. He has all these gemstones. He's trying to get to the future. He's trying to hear if Joni is really Claire's child, if she can hear the stones. And Michael ends up rescuing her and Raymond shows up and he puts them in what I refer to as the sound bubble. And he starts telling the Comte how you were one of mine. You have a blue aura. They're talking about going to the future. And then Joni, who all her prophetic visions in this book have been about seeing people getting ready to kill themselves or do something that is going to injure or kill someone else. And she quickly says to them, don't do it. And then poof, they both disappear. So then Michael and Joni kiss and we really have no idea what happens. We have no idea where the Comte and Master Raymond is. So the biggest things that stood out to me in this book that I'd like to talk about and hear what you guys think is the Comte impregnating Galus and all these other women to create anchors so that he can travel in time. Where the fuck did Master Raymond and the Comte go? Sorry, I can only use the F word because that's really, and the sound bubble, like I view the sound bubble and the way that the Comte is talking to the rats. Jenny, I'm going to let you get into that because I don't want to take that. I know that's your thought. Is kind of the space between, and they're accessing it in their mind. And I view that as the same way as Jamie is able to access the space between in his mind through his visions of the future and astral project himself. And I want to talk about that aspect of things. So I think that's pretty much the gist of it. I winged it. I'm pretty proud of myself.
No, that was good. That was excellent. Little synopsis there.
You did amazing.
What do you guys think about those points that I said? And did anything stand out to you more than what I just spoke about?
I guess the one thing that stuck out for me is at the end. Well, and it's almost at the end when they're in your silence bubble. Is that, as you said, Joni continually sees visions of people almost ending their life, and
Mm-hmm.
at the end, she says to the Comte and uh, Master Raymond right before they disappear, "Don't do it." And I am
Mm-hmm.
desperate to know
Mm-hmm.
what that meant. Where were they
Mm-hmm.
going? What was happening? That's
What
the
if
one
it's
thing
someone
that
else's death?
I just want to piggyback on that
yeah.
because that's one of the things that stands out to me also, just
Mm-hmm.
that moment in general, but also throughout the novella, the comp has this fear of his own death.
Mm-hmm.
He desperately wants to avoid his own fate, his own
Mm-hmm.
future. And when he finally has this moment, he's been looking for the frog the entire novella. When he finally has this moment where he's face to face with Master Raymond, he's almost like screaming at him. It's like you could see them, even though you couldn't hear anything, you could
Right.
see
Mm-hmm.
them having this argument, screaming at each other. And the comp is telling Master Raymond, tell me how to go forward. Tell me how to do it. And Master Raymond is saying, it's very dangerous. It can't just be any simple thing that you do. Because for the comp to see Raymond significantly younger than when he met him, he knows it's possible. He just doesn't know how it's possible. And I always thought the comp's anger and his fear of his own fate was so interesting. So when Joni says, don't do it, and then they both disappear in a cloud of smoke, you're right. What the hell just happened
Right.
and where did they go?
Absolutely. And
That's
now
that.
to go back with that, I almost said this before we started to film, and Doreen's like, "Stop, write it down, save it for filming." So, here's my thought on that. We know that Master Raymond says that traveling forward is dangerous, and that's one of the things
Mm-hmm,
that he's telling the Comte in this moment. So, this is my
mm-hmm,
question for that. We know it's if traveling forward is dangerous, and he's making anchors. What's the line where going forward isn't dangerous? So I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make
If
sense, but
you're, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
the thing is okay, two things I want to say. I think Master Raymond being young is because we're seeing Master Raymond on his own timeline. And the events of Paris,
Ooh,
Jamie, Claire, the comp have not happened yet for Master Raymond on the timeline version
okay,
that the comp is seeing right now, 30 years later in
mm-hmm,
Paris.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
okay,
Now, that's a whole rigmarole of stuff. But to your point, what you're saying, oh man, I just lost my train of thought. Hold on. People complain that I do this, and here I am doing it.
We're not complaining. We love it.
yeah,
We love you
exactly.
for you. We
I
love you
What were
for
guarantee
you
you.
everybody's waiting at the edge of their seat.
what were you just saying?
If traveling forward is dangerous, and yet they are making anchors so they can travel back to this moment,
Oh yeah.
and I guess
Okay.
technically that's in the past, but it doesn't
The
have to be. It's
anchor.
traveling forward.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Okay.
When is
So
it not dangerous?
let's just say that he impregnates the blue light woman at the aura right now in
Mm-hmm.
what is it, 1778?
Something like that.
That child
mm-hmm,
will grow up in say 50 years. So in theory, once that child is born, it is existing 50 years in the future.
Right.
So he could in theory use that as an anchor for 50 years. But if that
mm-hmm,
but that child has a child, so it's more about how many levels of separation can you have. And I
mm-hmm,
think he's trying to go forward because he thinks to himself, if I go to 1980 and I have a
Mm-hmm.
baby there and it's my first generation, like one descendant, that's an anchor. I can meet the child, I can see the child, and then it will be safe for me to just hop there whenever I want. Because we
mm-hmm,
also know there's a lot of evidence that every time they travel, that they're getting weaker, a lot of them. And
Right.
also, you had talked a lot about how Why does he care so much to figure out how Raymond poisoned him and how he survived it? Why is he experimenting on these rats over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure that out? Because maybe he's scared that because Raymond is so young, maybe he thinks the events of Paris are going to loop back around and he's really going to die, or he's going to die the same way. Raymond is going to, maybe he knows that Raymond kills him in the future the same way for real. And he's trying to figure out how to overcome it, or he's trying to kill Claire. He may know stuff that we don't know is going to happen, because we don't know in that 30 years, we have no idea what he learned, where he's been, who he's met, what Galus, because you have to remember, he was with Galus, who's from the 60s. Galus had a notebook of all the people that disappeared, how they disappeared, what was happening. And for all we know, the comp could be one of the people on that list. We just don't know. We don't know his origin. We don't know if his father was the pilot really that was traveling. He's trying to get to his father to ensure his own timeline. We really just don't know. So I don't know at what point the anchors work, to your question. How far,
I mean,
if you have an anchor, why would it be dangerous? But we don't, other than Buck, we don't really see anyone going forward that isn't going back to a time that they exist in already. So technically Jemmy, but because Bree was born in the future, that would be Jemmy's real time. But other than Buck, nobody else really goes forward. And it kind of plays in again to the predestination, because Buck had to go forward to meet Roger so that they would travel, to meet Jerry, to make sure Roger would survive, to make sure that Roger would help Claire find Jamie. Everything plays back to Jamie and his 9 lives.
It does. It does. Wasn't there a conversation between Master Raymond and Comp in the space between, where Master Raymond had said, I didn't want to kill you, I just needed you out of the way. And that also was very triggering for the Comp, because he was like, out of the way for what? And was that part of the same conversation where Master Raymond said he was looking for the lost daughter? Was that part of the same thing?
I think so. And it was also when he told him, of course I wouldn't kill you because you're one of mine, in the blue aura. And that's when the Comp said, oh, so all of us have the blue around us. And he explained to him, like, not everybody, but all of, yes, that.
Yes.
I can't keep track because they have 2 conversations and I can't remember
They do.
which one
They do.
consisted of which. But I think the first one, when they're talking about the alchemist and he turns into the cat, or he is using the animals for familiars. I think that's when that conversation takes place. And I just want to say something totally off topic, you guys. Liz just finished Fiery Cross, and she got to read about the Montauk 5. And she sent me this text and she sent me this video, and she's so excited. She's like, Doreen, you were right about the shape shifting. And I'm like, thank you.
I did. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, she's right. This whole time she's been right. It's true. It's true. And I just read the part of book 6 last night with Wendigo Donner and Claire. And so I feel like there's definitely more of that coming. And it's honestly, the books are getting so good. You guys, if you are stuck on the Fiery Cross, just audiobook it. Just get through it. Book 6 has been so good. The second half, I do want to say, in the Fiery Cross, around chapter 52 is when that book starts to get really good. But just skip the first half of the book if you have to, or just audiobook it. But it's so worth it. And once you get to book 6, it's like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
That's probably why Diana called it a breath of snow and ashes, because what a deep breath you can take after you finish the Fiery Cross.
I think we talked about doing an entire episode about Liz's experience reading the Fiery Cross and our experience reading the Fiery Cross. Maybe what we'll do is we'll just make an episode and tell you guys everything that happens in that book so you don't have to read it.
Yes,
read it. That would be great.
Correct. We read the Fiery Cross, so you don't have to. There we go. There we go. I love it. I
Oh
love that.
my God.
Okay, I think
Um,
we're getting ready to hit time, so I just want to say something really quick. A lot
Yes.
of people ask me, I don't want to read the books because I've already watched the show. And I want to just say, and I said this at the beginning, you really should read the novellas, even if you're not going to get into the big books, because
Mm-hmm.
especially Leaf, which is what Liz was talking about, and The Space Between, which is what I was talking about, these events take place right now where the show is.
right.
So you can
Mm-hmm.
pick those up and just get so much more backstory leading into season 8 because season 8, if they follow even 1% of book 9, is going to have a lot of magic. A lot of magic. And I feel like these novellas may
Yeah.
help prepare you for that shift.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
God, I hope
Good
so.
advice. Great advice.
yes.
I hope it does.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see how the show will start to bring in some of that, but we're just going to have to wait and see what happens.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
so.
not confident we're going to see magic. I think it's going to be put into practical ways for the
Yeah.
I
show,
do too. I do
which
too,
is
but I
disappointing.
just am
Uh,
I'm just holding out
Go
hope
ahead.
because I'm
Yes,
just holding
agreed.
out hope because
Agreed.
it's my favorite
Yeah,
book.
considering the backlash that Stranger Things has gotten with their last
See, I
episode,
liked
I,
it.
for one, was. I did too. I really liked the epilogue at the end. I
Mm,
don't think you've watched it yet, Liz, but there's this. When I
I
tell you
haven't.
it's a fever pitch right now with people thinking like
Mm-hmm.
there's a new last episode, like the rabbit holes people are going down, it makes us look like amateurs. Like it's insanity out there right now. Um,
Yeah.
I really hope that if we ever got to say something to the writers of TV shows, like adaptations of books or whatever, or even new shows like Stranger Things, we want to look at these shows and books and we want to pull it apart. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to put something in the background, we want to know what that means. Like, I really think the writers today have to step it up because we are, as much as I think some people are dumbing down, I do think that there is a movement of people who really want to pick apart these shows and pick apart these
Mm-hmm.
books and find the deeper meanings to them. So, stars, get on it. I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Matt Roberts, we hope you're listening.
Oh boy.
We want to pick this stuff apart. We want a deep dive.
I
Doreen
mean,
said, "Oh boy."
or maybe just don't adapt a book with heavy fantasy and magic elements and then cut it all out. We love the love story,
Right.
but give us the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. If we're going to suspend reality, we want to go headfirst in. So,
Yep. We want to dive right in. Yep. That's
exactly.
true. That's
Okay, I think we're at time for today. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. As always, we appreciate your feedback. If you're not already, please follow us at Outlander Unhinged on YouTube and TikTok. And our social media personal bios are listed in our Spotify and Apple and YouTube profiles. We love hearing from all of you and getting feedback on what you want to hear. So, thank you again for tuning in.
And until next time, we will see you in the space between.